You want to know what nobody warns you about when your body starts turning against you? How everyone suddenly becomes a medical expert with opinions about your life. I'm Valerie, I'm 45, and this is the story of how I lost everything because I was too proud to admit I needed help. Curtis and I had been married 21 years when everything went to hell. Two teenagers, decent house, steady jobs, him in logistics, me doing admin work downtown. Not exciting, but comfortable. We weren't those couples posting anniversary selfies every month, but we worked. At least I thought we did. The changes started creeping in around my 44th birthday. Hot flashes that felt like someone was setting me on fire from the inside out, waking up at 3 a.m. soaked in sweat while Curtis slept peacefully next to me. Then came the brain fog. I'd walk into rooms and forget why, lose my keys daily, stand in conversations having no idea what point I was trying to make. But the mood swings were the worst part. One minute I'd be fine, the next minute the sound of Curtis chewing his toast made me want to throw the plate at the wall. Everything he did irritated me. The way he cleared his throat, how he left his coffee mug on the counter instead of putting it straight in the dishwasher. The fact that he breathed too loudly when he was concentrating. Curtis being Curtis, he tried to help. Maybe you should talk to someone about this, he'd suggest after I'd snap at him for some trivial thing. I read there are treatments now that really help women going through these changes. That's what drove me crazy. The way he said, these changes, like my entire existence had become a medical condition he needed to research and manage. I don't need fixing, I'd tell him. I need you to stop treating me like I'm malfunctioning. He'd get that patient expression that made me want to scream. I'm not trying to fix you, Val. I just hate seeing you struggle. Struggle. Like this was some temporary phase I'd get over with the right treatment plan. My body was betraying me, my brain felt wrapped in cotton, and Curtis thought a doctor's appointment would solve everything. The bedroom became a war zone. My libido didn't just disappear, it relocated to another planet. When Curtis would reach for me at night, every nerve in my body recoiled. Not because he was gross, but because everything felt wrong, too sensitive, like my skin was turned up to maximum volume. When he'd get that hurt look, after I'd push him away, I'd lose it completely. What do you expect from me? I'd snap. I'm not your personal entertainment system. Looking back, yeah, that was brutal. But at the time it felt like everyone wanted something from me that I couldn't give. The kids needed rides and homework help. Work needed me cheerful and efficient. Curtis needed his wife back, and I needed everyone to just leave me alone long enough to figure out who I was becoming. Curtis started walking on eggshells, calculating his words before speaking, trying to read my mood before opening his mouth. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part was annoyed that he was treating me like I was made of glass. I wasn't fragile. I was going through something major, and instead of just accepting it, he was making it about his comfort level. The final explosion happened on a Tuesday. He'd picked up dinner because I was too exhausted to think about cooking, and the restaurant had screwed up our order. Not his fault, but I was already hanging by a thread. Seriously? You can't even handle takeout? I said, slamming the bag on the counter. This is exactly what I mean. You don't actually pay attention to what I need. Curtis stood there, looking shell-shocked. It's just food. Val, I can call them back. It's not about the food, I screamed. It's about you thinking any half-hearted effort counts. It's about you not caring enough to get the details right. That's when he said the words that changed everything. I think you need professional help. This isn't normal anymore, and it's affecting our whole family. Normal. There was that word. So now I wasn't normal? Now I was the family problem requiring professional intervention? Don't you dare tell me what's normal, I shot back. You have no idea what I'm dealing with. You get to wake up in the same body every day while mine is completely out of control. Curtis rubbed his temples, suddenly looking every one of his 43 years. I'm trying to understand, but you won't let me. You shut down every suggestion I make. Because I don't need your suggestions. I need you to stop treating me like some project you need to manage. But here's the truth, I couldn't admit then. I felt like I was losing my mind, and instead of letting him help me through it, I made him the enemy. Because it was easier to be angry at Curtis then face what was actually happening to me. The breaking point: things escalated fast after that. Curtis started coming home later from work, not dramatically, just 15 or 20 minutes here and there. Enough that dinner would be cold, enough that I'd be standing in the kitchen feeling abandoned. Traffic was backed up, he'd say, or had to finish something before I could leave. Always reasonable explanations delivered in that careful tone he'd started using, like I was a bomb that might explode. I started keeping track, which sounds insane, but I needed proof I wasn't imagining things. Monday, home at 6:23 instead of 6:03. Tuesday, 6:18. Wednesday, stopped at the store without mentioning it, didn't walk through the door until 6:45. When I confronted him, he looked genuinely confused. "I'm not avoiding home, Val. I'm just trying to handle everything I can outside the house so there's less stress when I get here." Less stress, like I was the stress he needed to manage. "So now I'm something you need to strategize around?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean? Because it sounds like you're saying I'm the problem that needs to be contained." He went quiet for a long moment. When he finally looked up, there was something different in his expression, something exhausted. "I meant that I don't know how to help you anymore. Every time I try, you get angry. I'm starting to think you don't actually want help. I want a husband who doesn't treat me like a medical condition. And I want a wife who doesn't treat me like the enemy." The silence stretched between us like a canyon. We were both right and both completely wrong. The final break came 3 weeks later. I'd had an especially brutal day. Work was stressful. I'd forgotten about our daughter's parent-teacher conference, spent 20 minutes looking for my phone while talking on it. Curtis came home to find me sitting at the kitchen table, staring at bills I couldn't focus on long enough to pay. "Rough day?" he asked gently. Something about his tone just shattered me. But instead of breaking down, I broke outward. "Don't. Just don't. I can't handle your pity right now." "It's not pity, Val. It's concern." "Same thing." I stood up, scattered the bills. "You know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of you walking around like you're some saint married to a crazy person. I'm tired of the looks, the careful words, the way you act like everything would be fine if I just go get myself fixed." Curtis set down his work bag slowly. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should call it what it is. You don't want to be married to me anymore, and honestly, I don't want to be married to someone who thinks I'm broken." "I don't think you're broken." "Bullshit. You think I'm a problem to be solved. Well, guess what? Your old wife is gone. This is who I am now." He stared at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. Something that looked almost like relief. "So what do you want to do about it?" I'd expected him to argue, to fight for us. Instead, he was asking what I wanted, like he'd already accepted we were over. "I want a divorce," I said. Curtis nodded slowly. "Okay." That was it. No dramatic argument, no begging, no last-ditch effort. Just okay. Like he'd been waiting for permission to give up, too. Within a week, Curtis had contacted a lawyer. He approached it like any other problem that needed solving, finding someone who specialized in amicable divorces. Even in leaving me, he was being reasonable and practical. The withdrawal. 2 months into the divorce proceedings, something shifted. Maybe it was seeing our life reduced to asset divisions and custody arrangements. Maybe it was watching Curtis adapt so easily to living in the guest room. Or maybe it was my sister Janet finally cornering me about what was really going on. "You look like hell," she said over coffee. "And don't tell me it's just divorce stress. You've looked like hell for months." Janet had gone through menopause herself a few years back. She'd tried to talk to me about it before, but I'd always brushed her off. "When was your last period?" she asked bluntly. The question caught me off guard. I'd stopped keeping track months ago. "I don't know, a while." "How long is a while, Val?" I tried to think back. 3 months? 4. Janet leaned forward. "And the mood swings? The brain fog? The way you've been snapping at everyone who tries to help you?" "I've been under stress." "This isn't stress. This is perimenopause and it's kicking your ass. Why haven't you seen anyone about it?" Because Curtis had suggested it, and I'd been too stubborn to admit he might be right. Because seeking help felt like admitting I was broken. "I didn't want to be one of those women," I said finally. "What women?" "The ones who blame everything on hormones." Janet stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You think acknowledging a medical condition makes you weak? When she put it like that, it sounded ridiculous. I'd been so determined not to be a stereotype that I'd refused to address what was actually wrong. Curtis tried to get me to see someone, I admitted. And you told him to go to hell. I told him to stop treating me like a problem. Oh, honey. Janet squeezed my hand. He wasn't trying to fix you. He was trying to help you fix yourself. The difference hit me like a punch. All those months of feeling like Curtis saw me as broken, when really he just wanted me to feel better. I messed up, I said. Yeah, you did. But it's not too late. That afternoon I called Curtis at work. I want to withdraw the divorce petition, I said without preamble. Silence. Then, what? I said I want to withdraw it. I made a mistake. I was going through something and I took it out on you. More silence. I could hear warehouse sounds in the background. Val, he said finally, I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? We can work this out. I'll get help, see someone about the hormone stuff. It's too late for that. The words hit like ice water. What do you mean? I mean, I've already moved on. Moved on. In 2 months, he'd moved on. While I'd been wallowing and slowly realizing what I'd thrown away, Curtis had been building a new life. What does that mean exactly? It means I've met someone. And before you ask, no, I wasn't seeing her while we were together. Someone. Curtis had replaced me in 8 weeks. Who is she? That's not really your business anymore. How old is she? Val, stop. How old? Curtis sighed. 36. 9 years younger. 9 years of not having hot flashes, not forgetting things, not snapping at people for breathing too loudly. This is ridiculous, I said. You're having some midlife crisis because we had a rough patch. You can't replace 20 years of marriage with some random woman. I'm not replacing anything. Our marriage ended when you asked for a divorce. I'm starting over. What about the kids? They'll adjust. Kids are resilient. The casual way he said it made me furious. You're abandoning your family. I'm moving forward with my life after my wife decided she didn't want to be married to me anymore. I changed my mind. Too late. And he hung up. The new woman. Her name was Sophia. I found out from our daughter, who'd overheard Curtis talking to his lawyer. It took me 3 days to find her on social media. She worked for some nonprofit downtown, had a communications degree, volunteered at the animal shelter. Her photos showed someone who looked exactly like what you'd expect. Clear skin, bright smile, effortless style that comes from not worrying about hot flash sweat stains. But what really got to me was how genuinely happy she looked. Not performative social media happiness, but the real kind that comes from not carrying 20 years of accumulated resentment. Curtis started staying at her place on weekends. He'd pick up the kids for dinner, but drop them off immediately after. No lingering, no attempts to work things out. He treated our house like a neutral meeting point for child exchanges. How serious is it? I asked when he came to get more clothes. Serious enough. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He moved through our bedroom like a stranger, efficiently gathering items. I watched him pack his good shirts, the cologne I'd bought him, the book he'd been reading before everything fell apart. She's pretty, I said, needing to see his reaction. Curtis paused. Yes, she is. Younger too. Also yes. Is that what this is about? You needed an upgrade? He stopped packing and turned to look at me, genuinely angry for the first time in months. You know what this is about, Val? It's about being with someone who doesn't make me feel like a failure every time I walk through the door. It's about having conversations that don't turn into fights. It's about feeling wanted instead of tolerated. The words stung because they were true. I had made him feel like a failure. I had turned every interaction into potential conflict. I was going through something, I said weakly. I know, and I tried to help, but you didn't want help from me. You wanted someone to blame, and I was convenient. When's the last time you said something nice to me, Val? When's the last time you acted like you were happy to see me? I opened my mouth and realized I couldn't answer. Not recently, maybe not for months. She makes me laugh, Curtis said quietly. I'd forgotten what that felt like. The simplicity was devastating. She made him laugh. After 20 years, that's what I'd lost the ability to do. The pregnancy bomb. The call came 6 months after I'd first asked for divorce. Curtis called while I was getting ready for work. I need to tell you something, he said. Sophia's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. Curtis was having a baby with someone else. Our kids were getting a half-sibling with a woman I'd never met. How far in? About 10 weeks. 10 weeks. It had happened almost immediately after they'd gotten serious. Are you going to marry her? That's the plan. Jesus, Curtis, you couldn't wait until our divorce was final? The timing of my personal life isn't your concern anymore. But it was my concern. This woman was going to be at graduations and weddings for the rest of our lives. She was pregnant with the child Curtis was excited to have, even though he'd been done having kids with me for years. What are you going to tell the kids? The truth. That Sophia and I are expecting a baby and planning to get married. They're going to be devastated. They'll adjust. This is really what you want? Starting over with someone you barely know? I've known her for 8 months now, and yes, it's what I want. 8 months. In 8 months, Curtis had met someone, fallen in love, moved in together, and gotten her pregnant. She's not going to stay interested once real life sets in, I said. Once she deals with midnight feedings and all the unglamorous parts. Why wouldn't she? Because she doesn't know you yet. She's still seeing the best version of you. Maybe that's because I'm giving her the best version of me. The implication hung in the air, that he hadn't been giving me his best, that somehow I'd gotten the leftovers while this new woman got the premium package. You're making a mistake, I said. The mistake was staying married as long as we did. The bitter reality. The divorce was finalized on a gray December morning. Curtis and I sat in a conference room while lawyers shuffled papers neither of us was really listening to anymore. He'd grown a beard since moving out, and it made him look different. More settled, more confident, like he'd figured something out about himself. That's it then, the lawyer said. You're officially divorced. Curtis signed with the same careful handwriting he'd used on our marriage certificate. I signed next to his, and we were strangers again. In the parking lot, Curtis paused beside his car. For what it's worth, I hope you're doing better. He seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. I am, I lied. I'm seeing someone about the hormone stuff, starting therapy too. Both were actually true. After months of Janet's nagging, I'd finally made the appointments. Good, Curtis said. You deserve to be happy, Val. The generosity of it almost broke me. Even after everything, he still wanted me to be okay. So do you, I said. He smiled then, the first real smile I'd seen in over a year. I am happy. Really happy. Curtis and Sophia married 3 weeks later at the courthouse. The kids were invited but chose not to go. The baby, a girl named Emma, was born in April. Curtis sent a text with a photo, tiny pink face, dark hair. Meet Emma, everyone's doing great. I stared at that photo for a long time. This little girl would grow up knowing Curtis as the father who chose to be there, who was present and engaged. She'd never know the tired, frustrated version I'd lived with. A year later, I ran into them at the mall. Curtis was pushing a stroller while Sophia browsed baby clothes, and they looked content. Not giddily happy, but comfortable together. Like they fit. Emma was walking by then, chasing Curtis with unsteady toddler steps while he pretended to run away. When she caught him, he scooped her up and spun her around, both laughing. I'd never seen Curtis play like that with our kids when they were small. Not because he didn't love them, but because he'd always been so tired. So stressed about bills and responsibilities. With Emma, he looked relaxed, present, like he had energy for joy instead of just survival. They didn't see me, and I didn't approach. What would have been the point? I was the ex-wife, the cautionary tale, the woman who'd had everything and thrown it away. I went home to my quiet apartment and tried not to think about the family I'd destroyed. Because that's what I'd done. I'd convinced myself Curtis was the problem, that our marriage was broken, that I deserved better than a husband who loved me enough to want to help. Now he was giving that love to someone else, someone who appreciated it, someone who didn't make him feel like a failure for caring. The therapy helped me understand what happened, but understanding doesn't undo damage. I could trace the path from untreated perimenopause to mood swings to pushing Curtis away, but knowing why didn't change the outcome. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd listened earlier, if I'd swallowed my pride and seen a doctor when he first suggested it. if I'd let him help instead of treating his concern like criticism. But there's no point wondering. Curtis moved on, built a new life, found happiness with someone who didn't fight him every step of the way. I got what I asked for. A divorce from a husband I'd convinced myself was the source of all my problems. The fact that he turned out to be the solution to someone else's happiness was just the price I paid for being too stubborn to accept help when it was offered. 2 years later, Curtis and Sophia bought a house with a big backyard where Emma could run around. I heard about it through our son, who mentioned it casually like it was no big deal. But for me, every milestone in their life together was a reminder of what I'd thrown away. Not just Curtis, but the chance to grow old with someone who'd loved me enough to want to help me through the hardest time in my life. I chose anger over acceptance, pride over partnership, blame over responsibility. And now Curtis was teaching Emma to ride a bike in a yard I'd never see, while I spent evenings alone wondering how different things might have been if I'd just been brave enough to admit I needed help.